They took Claire's son without warning. No evidence, no investigation, just a single phone call from a bitter neighbor. Mary Jean had never even spoken to Claire, yet used the system to tear a family apart with lies and personal bias. But Claire wasn't just a mother, she was a lioness, and what she uncovered about Mary Jean's past changed everything. And just wait until you hear how this courtroom showdown ended, because justice didn't just knock, it roared. Claire Sanders woke up that morning just like any other, to the soft hum of birds outside, the kettle steaming on the stove, and the small patter of feet from upstairs. Her 8-year-old son, Alex, shuffled into the kitchen in his dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. They shared their morning like always, oatmeal with a little too much cinnamon, orange juice, and laughter over how Alex had outgrown yet another pair of shoes. "You're growing faster than weeds," Claire teased, ruffling his messy hair. He grinned, mouth full of cereal, and hugged her tightly before heading off to get dressed for school. Claire never suspected that this would be the last normal moment they'd share for a very long time. The phone rang. She picked it up, thinking it was a delivery call, or maybe her boss, but the voice on the other end was neither friendly nor familiar. "This is Child Protective Services. We've received a report that your son may be in danger. We are required to remove him from your home immediately." There was no emotion in the tone, no questions, no warning, just cold protocol. Claire blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. "I'm sorry, what? What danger? What report?" But the line had already gone silent. 15 minutes later, a car pulled up. 2 officials stepped out with clipboards and unreadable faces. Claire opened the door, still in her robe, her voice cracking as she tried to explain that this was a mistake. A huge one. They didn't listen. Alex stood behind her, his small backpack still half-zipped, clutching his favorite plush toy. When they told him he had to go with them, his voice broke in a way Claire would never forget. "Mom, I don't want to go. I'm not in danger. I didn't do anything." He reached for her, but they held him back. She stood frozen. Her arms didn't move. Her legs wouldn't respond. Shock locked her in place as her child, her whole world, was taken from her without explanation. By the time the car drove off, she still hadn't blinked. Hours passed before she could think clearly. She called the agency back, desperate, shaking, begging for information. No one answered. And when she finally did reach someone, it wasn't a caseworker. It was a front desk employee who sounded vaguely annoyed and said, "There was a call from your neighbor. We had to act quickly. That's just how the process works." No proof, no questions, no visits, just a phone call. Claire, a single mother, was suddenly labeled a threat. Not by action, not by evidence, but because someone next door made a call. And just like that, her son was in foster care. And she was alone, drowning in silence. No one had asked about her parenting. No one had seen the birthday cards Alex made for her. No one had noticed the stack of parenting books by her nightstand. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't cruel. She was just a mother. One who didn't fit into her neighbor's idea of good enough. And that was all it took. At first, Claire did what any reasonable person would do. She followed the rules. She hired an attorney, filed appeals, called Child Protective Services daily. She spoke softly, patiently, trying to reason with people who treated her like a file number on a desk. But the deeper she went into the system, the clearer it became. This wasn't about facts. It was about process. Every time she asked for an update, she was met with automated emails, long holds, or polite, dismissive phrases like, "We're working on it. These things take time. We're following protocol." But time was the enemy. Each day away from Alex felt like a stolen lifetime. To them, she was just another case, another folder in the stack. Meanwhile, across the street, Mary Jean, the neighbor who had made the original call, walked her dog and chatted with other women on the block as if nothing had happened. Claire overheard them one afternoon. She had taken out the trash and stopped dead when she heard Mary Jean's voice carry over the fence. Poor boy. You can just tell. They're one of those families. It's better to step in early before something actually happens. Claire stepped back, standing behind the trash bin, frozen in disbelief. Mary Jean had never stepped inside her house, never seen a bruise, never asked how Alex was doing. She hadn't even looked them in the eye when they passed. And yet, she had judged Claire's entire motherhood based on what? Her income? Her single status? Claire's hands clenched. Something cracked open inside her that day, and that's a slow, boiling certainty. If she stayed quiet, they would never give him back. She stopped waiting. She started working. Claire collected everything she could. Security footage showing peaceful mornings. Testimonies from Alex's teachers praising his joy, his progress, his kindness. Notes from friends. A signed statement from a licensed child psychologist declaring there was no evidence, none, of any neglect or harm. Still, CPS delayed. Paperwork got lost. Calls went unreturned. That's when Claire stopped asking and started shouting. One night, eyes bloodshot from 3 days without sleep, she opened her laptop and typed 5 words. They took my child. Help. She posted it on every platform she had, Twitter, Facebook. Then she opened TikTok, filmed herself holding Alex's toy dinosaur, and whispered, "My son is not in danger, but someone took him anyway." The video exploded. Within 24 hours, her post had 8 million views. Comments flooded in, messages of support, outrage, demands for answers. Claire's face appeared on local news. National podcasts picked up the story. Advocacy groups began tagging officials. Suddenly, Mary Jean wasn't so smug. She stopped watering her lawn, kept her blinds shut. Reporters began camping outside her house. One woman even threw her gardening gloves at a news van, yelling for them to leave. But Claire was just getting started. She submitted a formal complaint to the state ombudsman. She got a call back in less than a day. Then she reached out to the district attorney's office, this time armed with a new discovery: court records. Mary Jean, it turned out, had done this before. 3 times, 3 different families. Twice she had been caught fabricating reports. Once she even filed under a false name. It was never about protecting children. It was about control. Claire now had more than a story. She had proof. She had voices behind her. And most importantly, she had momentum. The courtroom was silent, not out of tension, but from the weight of truth that had finally, undeniably arrived. Claire sat beside her attorney, her fingers trembling slightly as she held a folder thick with evidence. Across from her, Mary Jean looked almost unrecognizable. No bright lipstick, no curled hair, no smug expression. Just a tired woman surrounded by silence. The judge entered. The proceedings began, and they didn't last long. Claire's lawyer stood with calm precision, each statement slicing through weeks of pain. There is no abuse, no neglect. What we have here is bias and retaliation. He listed the documented lies, the history of false reports, the video evidence, the testimonies from teachers, psychologists, neighbors who'd seen the real Claire, the real Alex, a boy who smiled, a mother who never stopped fighting. The room listened. Even those who came in skeptical leaned forward. And then, just as he finished, something unexpected happened. Alex entered the courtroom, escorted by a social worker. He spotted his mother, and everything else fell away. No judge, no lawyers, no files. Just her. Their eyes locked for the first time in 3 long months. Before anyone could stop him, Alex broke free from the escort and ran. Claire stood instinctively, arms wide open, and he flew into her, like a bird returning to the only nest it had ever known. The bailiff took a step forward, then paused. No one moved. The judge took a deep breath and spoke. His voice was stern, but his eyes betrayed something close to compassion. "You manipulated the system to harass your neighbor," he said, turning to Mary Jean. "And you abused public resources, created emotional distress, and nearly destroyed a family." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "That is a crime." Mary Jean was sentenced to 18 months probation and a substantial fine. Her name appeared in every local newspaper the next morning. A face once associated with concern for the community, now marked by selfishness and control. But this story wasn't really hers, it was Claire's. And in the weeks that followed, Claire's case ignited something much bigger. State officials launched a review of emergency child removal protocols. Policies were changed. A new law passed in Texas. No child could be taken from their home without at least 2 forms of verified evidence, unless there was immediate physical danger. One voice, once ignored, became a standard. Reporters called Claire the Lioness mother. Schools invited her to speak about due process. She declined most interviews, except for one. When a journalist asked her how she survived it all, the silence, the judgment, the fear, Claire didn't hesitate. She looked straight into the camera, her son's hand tucked in hers, and answered, "I'm a lioness, and that boy, he's my cub. No one touches my child, not then, not now, not ever." And the world listened, because sometimes it takes a mother with nothing left to lose to change everything.